My spoiled twin sister canceled her own wedding date just to force our parents to give her my dream venue booking. Growing up as an identical twin is a psychological experience that most people will never truly understand. To the outside world, you are a matching set, two copies of the same blueprint. But on the inside, from the moment you are old enough to articulate a thought, a subtle, often invisible war for individuality begins. My name is Maya, and my identical twin sister is Vanessa. While we shared the exact same DNA, the same wide hazel eyes, and the same dark chestnut hair, our internal operating systems could not have been more radically different. I grew up with a deep-seated need to build things with my own hands, to earn my place, and to never be a burden to anyone. Vanessa, on the other hand, weaponized her vulnerability. From a very young age, our parents unconsciously established a dynamic that shaped our entire lives. Vanessa was perceived as the fragile one, the golden child whose emotional equilibrium had to be protected at all costs. If I received an award at school for academic excellence or artistic design, Vanessa would lock herself in her room and cry, claiming that the universe was unfair to her. Instead of teaching her resilience, our parents would rush to comfort her, buying her an expensive gift or throwing her a party to make her feel special. They called it keeping the peace. I called it what it truly was: enabling a monster of entitlement. I learned to keep my achievements to myself, to grow in the shadows, and to rely completely on my own capabilities. By the time I turned 29, I had established a successful career as a high-end corporate event manager, specializing in logistically complex product launches and architectural design showcases. I knew how contracts worked. I knew how people worked. And most importantly, I knew how to manage crises under extreme pressure. When I met Ethan, my fiancé, it felt like finding a calm harbor after a lifetime of navigating turbulent family waters. Ethan was a structural engineer, grounded, deeply logical, and fiercely supportive of my independence. We didn't want a massive, flashy, superficial wedding that existed solely to impress strangers on social media. We wanted our wedding to be a physical manifestation of our shared appreciation for history, architecture, and natural beauty. For as long as I could remember, my absolute dream venue was the Historic Botanical Glasshouse. Built in the late 1920s, it was a massive, sweeping architectural masterpiece made entirely of iron framework and thousands of vintage glass panes, housing a breathtaking labyrinth of exotic tropical plants, cascading white orchids and towering palms. Because of its historical preservation status and immense popularity among global elites, the waiting list to secure a weekend date at the Glass House was famously 20 months long. The down payment required to lock in a slot was astronomical and entirely non-refundable. I didn't ask my parents for a single penny. I knew that if they contributed even a dime, Vanessa would demand an equal or greater amount for whatever whim she was chasing at the time. For 2 solid years, Ethan and I lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment, cutting out every possible luxury, packing our own lunches, and taking on exhausting freelance design shifts over the weekends. Every dollar we saved went into a dedicated wedding fund. When the day finally came that our name reached the top of the reservation ledger, my hands shook with pure joy as I signed the legal venue contract. We secured the premier Saturday slot in late July, the perfect season when the evening sun would dip below the horizon, casting a natural, golden hour amber glow through the thousands of glass panels just as the vows were being exchanged. Shortly after our announcement, Vanessa met David, a kind, hardworking, and incredibly wealthy software developer. Within 3 months, they were engaged. Vanessa, true to form, immediately wanted a wedding that would overshadow mine. She insisted on booking the grand ballroom of the most expensive modern luxury hotel downtown. It was a massive, pristine white space filled with crystal chandeliers and gold leaf pillars. It cost twice as much as my booking, paid for entirely by David's family and our parents, who drained a significant portion of their retirement savings just to appease her high-maintenance demands. Vanessa spent months bragging about her multi-tiered cake, her imported designer dress, and the sheer scale of her guest list. I was genuinely happy for her, hoping that having her own lavish spotlight would finally cure her of her lifelong obsession with competing against me. But everything changed 3 weeks ago when I uploaded a few preview images from our pre-wedding site inspection checklist to a private family cloud folder. The images showed Ethan and me standing beneath the towering 70-foot glass canopy, surrounded by lush greenery and illuminated by an ethereal, natural emerald light. It looked like something out of a classic fairy tale. The very next morning, the storm broke. It started with an urgent, breathless phone call from my mother on a rainy Tuesday evening. Her voice was trembling with that specific brand of panicked anxiety she only reserved for Vanessa's emotional meltdowns. She told me that I needed to come over to the family house immediately, that there was a massive crisis, and that the entire future stability of the family depended on an urgent meeting. When Ethan and I arrived at my childhood home, The atmosphere inside the living room was suffocatingly heavy. The lights were dimmed. A box of tissues sat in the center of the mahogany coffee table, and my sister Vanessa was curled up on the sofa, her face buried in a plush blanket, emitting soft, theatrical, dry sobs. My mother was sitting beside her, rubbing her back in rhythmic, desperate circles, while my father paced back and forth near the fireplace, looking deeply ashamed and completely exhausted. My father stopped pacing when he saw me enter. He cleared his throat, unable to meet my eyes directly. "Maya, thank you for coming," he began, his voice strained and unnaturally formal. "We are facing an incredibly delicate situation here. Vanessa and David have had a massive disagreement regarding their wedding plans. Vanessa has realized that the modern hotel ballroom they booked feels cold, sterile, and completely wrong for her mental well-being. She had a severe anxiety attack yesterday after looking at the venue again, and she has officially canceled her wedding date with the hotel." I blinked, trying to process the sheer absurdity of the statement. She canceled her date? Mom, her wedding is supposed to be 3 months from now. The invitations have already been printed. What do you mean she just canceled it? My mother looked up, her eyes wide with pleading desperation. "Maya, please try to understand. Your sister is incredibly sensitive. She realizes now that she cannot be happy in that environment. She saw the architectural previews of your booking at the Historic Glasshouse, and it triggered a deep emotional realization in her. She feels that the natural green space is the only place where she can truly feel at peace on her wedding day. She has told David, and she has told us, that if she cannot have the Glasshouse venue next month, she is going to call off the entire engagement and break up with David permanently." The room fell into a dead silence. I looked at Vanessa, who peeked out from behind her blanket for a fraction of a second. In that fleeting moment, there was no trace of tears or panic in her eyes. There was only a cold, calculating, victorious stare. She wasn't having a mental health crisis. She was throwing the ultimate tantrum to hijack the one thing in my life that she couldn't buy with our parents' money. My father stepped forward, holding out his hands in a gesture of absolute defeat. "Maya, we know how hard you and Ethan worked to secure that booking. We know you've been planning this for 2 years. But Vanessa's entire future happiness, her relationship with David, and her emotional stability are hanging by a thread here. We are asking you, as the mature, strong sister, to make a sacrifice for this family. We want you to sign your Glasshouse venue contract over to Vanessa. We will completely compensate you for every dollar you spent. In fact, we will pay an extra $10,000 on top of it, so you and Ethan can book any other luxury venue in the city for a later date. We just need you to let her have this Saturday slot next month." My blood ran cold. The sheer audacity of the request left me temporarily speechless. Ethan took a step forward, his jaw tight with controlled anger. "With all due respect," Ethan said, his voice dropping into a low, firm register. "Maya and I sacrificed our comfort for 24 months to earn that specific date. We chose that venue because it represents who we are. Our guests have already booked international flights. Our vendors have already calibrated their equipment for the lighting specifications of that glass structure. You cannot simply ask us to erase 2 years of our lives because Vanessa changed her mind." My mother immediately began to cry, her voice rising in defensive anger. "Ethan, this is a private family matter. You don't understand the history here. Maya has always been the resilient one. She can survive anywhere. She can plan another beautiful wedding in her sleep, but Vanessa will break. Are you really both so selfish that you would let your own sister's engagement fall apart? Let her life be ruined just for a building made of glass? It's just a location, Maya. Family should mean more than a physical structure." The emotional manipulation was masterclass level. For my entire life, my resilience had been used as a weapon against me. Because I was strong, I was expected to bear the burden of everyone else's weakness. Because I was capable, I was expected to surrender my rewards to the incapable. I took a deep, steadying breath, utilizing the exact emotional detachment training I used when dealing with high-profile, irrational corporate clients. I did not scream, I did not cry, and I did not allow them to see an ounce of my internal devastation. "I am not making any immediate decisions tonight under emotional duress," I said, my voice completely flat, smooth, and professional. "I understand what you are asking of me. I understand the stakes you have presented. Give me 48 hours to review my legal contracts, speak with my vendors, and look at our logistical options. I will give you my final answer on Thursday evening." Vanessa finally spoke from the couch, her voice a fragile, orchestrated whisper. "Thank you, Maya. I knew you would understand that my happiness depends on this." I didn't look back at her as Ethan and I walked out of the house. I knew exactly what that whisper meant. She thought she had won. She thought the old pattern would repeat, and that I would fold under the crushing weight of parental guilt. But she had no idea that she had just initiated a sequence of events that she was completely unequipped to handle. The moment Ethan and I got back to our apartment, The silence was deafening. Ethan paced around our small kitchen island, his hands tucked deep into his pockets. "Maya," he said softly, turning to face me with genuine concern written across his face. "If you want to give her the venue just to keep your parents from tearing themselves apart, I will support you. I love you, not the building. But if you want to fight this, tell me right now, because what they are doing to you is fundamentally abusive." I sat at my desk, opening my professional laptop and pulling up the primary master contract for the Historic Botanical Glasshouse. "Ethan," I said, a cold smile slowly forming on my lips, "I have no intention of giving her my dream, and I have absolutely no intention of letting her ruin our lives. But I am not going to fight them with shouting matches or tears. That is Vanessa's domain, and she wins when the arena is emotional chaos. I am going to fight her with cold, hard corporate logistics. Before I formulated my counter strategy, I needed to gather accurate intelligence. I picked up my phone and dialed David, Vanessa's fiancé. David was a thoroughly decent, incredibly structured individual who had made his fortune through logical systems. When he answered, his voice sounded entirely broken and deeply embarrassed. I bypassed all pleasantries and asked him directly about the cancellation of their hotel venue. "Maya, I am so incredibly sorry." David sighed heavily over the line. "I didn't want any of this." Vanessa completely blindsided me. On Monday night, she started screaming that the hotel ballroom was an insult to her aesthetic, that she felt trapped in it, and that she couldn't marry me if I didn't provide her with a venue that matches her worth. She literally forced me to call the hotel management and pay a massive cancellation fee, while she held her engagement ring over the kitchen sink, threatening to drop it down the disposal unit. I tried to tell her that your venue is non-transferable, but she told me that your parents would force you to handle the transfer. I feel sick to my stomach, Maya. I don't want to steal your wedding. Thank you for being honest with me, David, I said gently. Please do me a favor. Do not argue with Vanessa for the next 48 hours. Let her believe that her plan is working perfectly. Just stay quiet and protect yourself. Once I hung up, I turned my absolute focus to the legal fine print of the Glasshouse reservation contract. I had drafted and executed hundreds of these agreements throughout my career. Section 14, Clause B was explicitly clear. Reservations are strictly non-transferable to other private parties. Any attempt to reassign, sell, or transfer a booked date to another individual will result in the immediate, automatic cancellation of the slot, the total forfeiture of the deposit, and the date will automatically be offered to the next corporate or private entity on the 20-month waiting list. This meant that even if I wanted to be the saint my parents wanted me to be, I could not legally hand the keys over to Vanessa. If I tried to change the name on the reservation from Maya to Vanessa, the corporate software system would flag the modification, terminate the contract instantly, and give the slot to a stranger. Vanessa would not get her dream wedding, I would lose my deposit, and our parents' money would be utterly wasted. But as an experienced event manager, I also knew the hidden loophole built into premium heritage sites. The contract allowed the original bride, under a specialized corporate clause, to sublease or reallocate the venue space for authorized commercial or corporate events if a sudden scheduling conflict arose, provided the master balance was fully settled by the original contracting party. An brilliant plan began to crystallize in my mind. I didn't need to cancel my wedding. I simply needed to relocate it to an environment where Vanessa's toxic reach could never find us. I reached out to my primary corporate client, a multi-million-dollar international organic skincare and botanical wellness brand that I had worked with for over 3 years. They had been desperately searching for an elite, high-end, botanical-themed location within the city to host their annual global media summit and launch their new premium product line. Their intended date fell exactly on the weekend of my wedding, but they had been rejected by the Glasshouse due to the 20-month waiting list. I called their chief marketing officer directly. Within 20 minutes, we hammered out a seamless, ironclad legal agreement. My corporate client would officially take over the financial responsibility of my Glasshouse booking under a commercial sublease agreement. They would pay the venue's remaining master balance directly, and on top of that, they paid my event management firm a massive premium consultancy fee for curating the space on short notice. The amount they paid me was double what Ethan and I had spent on our initial down payment. With that substantial capital instantly secured, I utilized my vast network of professional industry contacts to execute a logistical miracle. I secretly contacted an exclusive private lakeside orchard located exactly 2 hours north of the city. It was a stunning, secluded estate featuring centennial apple trees, a private dock over crystal clear water, and a beautifully restored rustic barn equipped with state-of-the-art climate control. It was completely unavailable to the general public, but because I had managed several luxury corporate retreats for the estate owner in the past, he happily agreed to open the property exclusively for my wedding date next month at a heavily discounted rate. Within 48 hours, I had silently migrated my entire wedding infrastructure, my high-end caterers, my floral designers, my acoustic musicians, and my lighting crew to the private lakeside orchard. We quietly updated our digital wedding website, sending out encrypted notifications and luxurious private shuttle vouchers to our select list of genuine friends and supportive extended family members. We explicitly left our parents and Vanessa off the automated updates. On Thursday evening, precisely 48 hours after the initial meeting, I walked back into my parents' living room to deliver my final answer. When I entered the living room on Thursday night, Vanessa was sitting upright, sipping a cup of artisanal tea, looking exceptionally smug and relaxed. My parents were smiling warmly, completely convinced that their golden child was about to receive her prize. My mother held out a folder containing the compensation check they had promised. "Maya, darling," my mother said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "We are so incredibly proud of your maturity. Have you brought the venue contract assignment forms so we can finalize everything for Vanessa?" I stood in front of them, arms crossed, my expression completely neutral. "I am here to give you my final decision," I said calmly. "After reviewing the legal parameters of my reservation with the Historic Botanical Glasshouse, I discovered that the contract contains a strict non-transferability clause. I cannot legally assign or transfer my slot to Vanessa. If I attempt to change the name on the account, the reservation will be instantly deleted by the system. Our deposit will be lost, and the slot will go to the next stranger on the waiting list." Vanessa's face instantly darkened, her teacup rattling against the saucer. "You're lying!" she hissed, dropping her fragile persona entirely. "You're just saying that because you're selfish and you want to keep it for yourself." "Mom, make her give it to me!" "Let me finish," I interrupted, my voice dropping into an authoritative, professional tone that silenced the room. Because I didn't want to be the cause of any family friction, I decided to handle the situation legally. "I have officially cleared my name from the weekend schedule. Vanessa, you can go ahead and plan whatever event you want. I will not be standing in your way." My mother sighed with massive relief, completely missing the subtle wording of my statement. "Oh, thank goodness, Maya. You truly are the bigger person. Thank you for clearing the path for your sister." I didn't offer any further explanations. I simply declined their compensation check, stating that my finances were completely taken care of, and left the house. For the next 3 weeks, Ethan and I completely turned off our phone notifications regarding family chats. We focused entirely on perfecting our beautiful lakeside orchard wedding. Meanwhile, through quiet updates from David, I learned that Vanessa was on an absolute high. She had convinced herself that since my name was off the active calendar, she could simply show up with her entourage on the scheduled Saturday, pay the venue, and walk down the aisle in my place. She didn't bother checking with the venue administration, assuming our parents' traditional wealth and her own sheer willpower would resolve any minor bureaucratic details. The morning of the wedding arrived, clear, crisp, and beautifully sunny. 2 hours north of the city at the private lakeside orchard, our wedding was an absolute masterpiece of peace, authentic love, and genuine joy. Surrounded by 60 of our closest friends and family members who truly valued us, Ethan and I exchanged our vows under the shade of ancient trees, accompanied by the gentle sound of water lapping against the shore. There was no drama, no shouting, and no toxic competition. It was pure bliss. But down in the city, at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a completely different production was unfolding. Vanessa arrived at the front gates of the Historic Botanical Glasshouse in a massive white stretch limousine. She was wearing her incredibly expensive 7-foot-long designer bridal gown, her hair perfectly coiffed, accompanied by 10 bridesmaids, a professional photography crew, our parents, and a fleet of confused guests who had been told at the last minute to change their destination to the glass house. But as the limousine pulled up to the main historical gates, Vanessa didn't see the delicate pastel floral arches or the elegant wedding signage she was expecting. Instead, the entire front perimeter of the glass house was lined with high-end, minimalist, matte black corporate stanchions. Massive, towering digital banners flanked the entrance, displaying a sleek, minimalist logo that read, "Verdant Skin Global, International Eco Beauty Summit and Press Launch." Dozens of high-profile international beauty journalists, corporate executives in tailored suits, and foreign media personnel with professional video equipment were milling around the courtyard, holding exclusive corporate credentials. The entire public access path was completely blocked by private security personnel wearing communication earpieces. Vanessa stepped out of the limousine, her long white train dragging across the asphalt as her face twisted into a mask of pure confusion and swelling rage. She marched past the security barriers, her high heels clicking furiously against the stone tiles, and stormed directly up to the main glass entrance where the venue's chief administrative manager was standing with a digital clipboard. "What is the meaning of this absolute garbage?" Vanessa shouted, her voice echoing off the glass walls, drawing the attention of several international journalists. "This venue was reserved for today. My sister Maya booked this slot, and today is my wedding day. Clear these corporate banners out of here immediately so my decorators can set up." The chief manager, a thoroughly seasoned professional who had been explicitly briefed by my event management firm weeks prior, calmly looked down at his digital ledger and then looked up at Vanessa with a cold, unyielding expression. "Ma'am, you are currently disrupting a private corporate event," the manager said, his voice carrying perfectly across the crowded entrance. "We do not have any wedding registered under the name of Vanessa or Maya today. Miss Maya legally and successfully utilized her contract's commercial reallocation clause 3 weeks ago. She subleased this entire facility to a multinational corporate brand for their global product launch. Their security team has exclusive control of the property until midnight tonight. You do not have authorization to be on these premises. I must ask you to step behind the security barriers immediately, as you are currently blocking the path for our international media guests." The scene that followed outside the historic glasshouse was described to me later by David's best man as a spectacle of absolute, unmitigated social ruin. Vanessa completely lost any semblance of self-control. She began screaming at the venue manager, accusing him of being part of an elaborate conspiracy to destroy her life, while her white designer dress became progressively stained with dust from the sidewalk. Our mother rushed forward, trying to use her traditional social standing to intimidate the security staff, but the corporate guards remained entirely unmoved, quietly threatening to call the local authorities for civil disturbance if the bridal party did not immediately vacate the media entrance. David stood near the back of the crowd, watching his fiancé throw a massive, unhinged public tantrum in the middle of a high-profile corporate summit. For David, the illusion was completely shattered. He looked at the corporate banners, he looked at the venue manager's official documentation, and he finally realized the depths of the deception. Vanessa hadn't had a mental health crisis over her hotel ballroom. She had intentionally destroyed their original wedding plans and wasted thousands of dollars of his family's money purely out of a malicious desire to hijack her twin sister's life. Without saying a single word to Vanessa, David walked over to his parents, told them to get back into their cars, and quietly left the scene. He blocked Vanessa's number before he even reached his house. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just as Ethan and I were sitting down with our guests for a beautiful, open-air lakeside dinner, my phone began to vibrate continuously. I stepped away from the main table for a brief moment and answered the call from my father. His voice was completely hollow, drained of all the arrogant authority he had possessed 3 weeks ago. "Maya," he whispered, the sound of Vanessa's hysterical screaming still audible in the background of the call. "How could you do this to your own blood? Your sister is sitting in the back of a car, completely destroyed. Her wedding is gone. David has officially broken off the engagement and left the city. His lawyers just sent us an email stating they will be suing us for the recovery of their non-refundable expenses. Why didn't you just tell us what you did with the contract?" I stood under the shade of an apple tree, looking back at my beautiful husband Ethan, who was laughing with our friends in the distance. I felt a profound sense of absolute clarity. "Dad," I said, my voice completely steady, calm, and entirely devoid of malice. "I told you the absolute truth on Thursday night. I told you that I had cleared my name from the active wedding schedule and that the contract was legally non-transferable to Vanessa. You and Mom were so blinded by your desire to appease Vanessa's entitlement that you didn't bother to listen to the logistics. You assumed that because I am the strong, resilient daughter, you could simply take my rewards and hand them to her to keep her quiet. I didn't destroy Vanessa's wedding. Vanessa destroyed her own wedding the exact moment she chose to cancel her perfectly beautiful ballroom out of pure jealousy. We are your parents, Maya," he groaned, his voice cracking with emotion. "We were just trying to keep the family together." "No, Dad," I replied firmly. "You were buying your own peace at the absolute expense of my life. For 29 years, I have allowed you to sacrifice my happiness to feed Vanessa's ego. That contract was mine. I earned it with my own sweat, my own money, and my own professional expertise. When you tried to force me to surrender it, I used my professional skills to protect my investment and protect my marriage. Vanessa tried to play an emotional game, but she forgot that I deal with corporate contracts for a living. I have transferred the profits from that venue into a beautiful new life with Ethan. I will not be coming back to the city for a very long time, and I suggest you use this time to finally teach Vanessa how to face reality." I hung up the phone before he could respond. I walked back to my table, sat down next to my husband, and raised a glass of sparkling water to toast the people who actually loved and respected me. In the weeks that followed, the fallout within the family was absolute. Vanessa tried to mobilize our extended aunts and uncles to launch a massive social media smear campaign against me, claiming that I had maliciously scammed her out of her wedding day. But her plan backfired spectacularly. Because I am an event manager, I had meticulously kept every single text message, every email from my parents, and a certified copy of the original Glasshouse contract. I quietly uploaded a single, comprehensive, and completely unemotional public drive containing the chronological facts of the situation to the extended family group chat. The moment our relatives saw that Grandma's house, my parents' retirement savings, and David's finances had been continuously drained by Vanessa's greed, the support for her completely evaporated. Our parents are now facing severe financial strain, having to pay back David's family for the legal damages caused by the sudden venue manipulation. Vanessa is currently living back in her childhood bedroom, her high society engagement completely dead, and her reputation within our local community thoroughly tarnished. Ethan and I have officially moved into a beautiful new home closer to the Northern Lake District, completely independent and thriving. I still look at the pictures of our wedding day at the lakeside orchard, and I don't feel a single ounce of regret. Sometimes the best way to handle a lifetime of family manipulation isn't to fight fire with fire. It's to let the fire burn itself out against the unyielding wall of a professional contract.